Hello. Today Nemo has some questions for me about the exchange of energy and matter in the biosphere.
Hey, Amy, I've been wondering lots of things.
Oh, like what?
So how does the ecosystem balance itself when meat and other animals are constantly eating things?
This is a phenomenon called dynamic equilibrium. So the ecosystem is constantly changing and adapting to the changes that you and other animals are making to it. So this can be by animals reproducing to create more prey, and then you guys are eating some of them, and then it constantly balances.
Well, what is a food chain and what is biodiversity?
A food chain is the order that things get consumed and energy is passed along. You start with plants who get their energy from sunlight, and then you get the primary consumers, which would be like the slugs and all those little disgusting bugs that you love to eat. And then you would have a secondary consumer, who would be you, and then you get a third consumer, which is like those big scary foxes. And then the third consumers are technically called tertiary consumers. Biodiversity is the variety of animals and plant species in an ecosystem. So if there is not a lot of biodiversity, such as in the North Pole or the Arctic, where there is very few variety of species because it's so cold and they have to be very hardy and resourceful, if you take one species out by accident or if they're overhunted or something, then the whole ecosystem collapses. Whereas in an ecosystem such as the rainforest, it would not affect it as bad, and it would be all peachy fine. It would have a little effect if a species went extinct, but not as bad as in the Arctic.
Oh, that makes a little bit more sense. But why do I need to eat stuff? Besides for the fact that it's nummy.
You need to eat stuff because when you eat stuff, you get energy, which comes, all the energy in the earth comes from the sun. So the plants will have the energy, and then what you eat, primary consumers eat the plants. So then they get 10% of the energy from the plants, and then when you eat something, you get 10% of the energy from whatever you eat. So you don't get a lot of energy, which is why you need to eat more. And unlike energy, there's lots of things that we need that are constantly cycled, such as oxygen, which we breathe, such as carbon, such as nitrogen, phosphorus, and lots of other things, but those are kind of the main ones. So nitrogen, for example, you need because plants need nitrogen as nutrients. The plants you really love, and they get that from things that transfer nitrogen from NO2 to NO3 because you can't use it in NO2 form. It needs to be in NO3 form, which is also why we need oxygen in the soil for plants. Because everything is cycled, everything has to have been from something that was somewhere once upon a time. So a grass cell can become part of a cell in your nose. This is because the grass can be eaten by a cow or some sort of a farm animal that will end up being butchered and then eaten by you. So then all those cells still exist, and some of those cells from the meat can become part of your nose or your ear or wherever your body decides that it needs that. So we're all connected in that way, which is really cool.
What are abiotic and biotic factors?
Abiotic factors are non-living things that make up lots of the earth, such as rocks, sand, such as temperature, the amount of sunlight we have, and they often affect how well biotic things, which are living things, can survive and grow.
That is crazy. Now, how do humans impact biodiversity?
Humans impact biodiversity by hunting, poaching, or overhunting. When humans overhunt something, they endanger it or possibly make it extinct, which harms the ecosystem, and then depending on the ecosystem, it can very much fall apart and cause lots of negative repercussions. As well as humans create lots of bad things, such as pollution. So then that harms the animals, which harms the ecosystem.
I have heard of climate change, but what is it actually? It doesn't make sense to me.
Climate change is the way we are heating up the earth, and it would happen a little bit naturally, but we are very much increasing it and making it a lot more drastic than it would naturally. So the way the ocean levels are rising and the glaciers are melting, that is a factor of climate change, a result of it. Natural disasters such as hurricanes, floods, droughts, and wildfires will become a lot more common and intense because carbon, with all the extra carbon, it controls the Earth's weather and it traps a lot more heat in it, which causes all these things.
Why can't all the extra heat just go back into outer space? I don't see a barrier between us and space.
So because we are burning fossil fuels so much faster than the Earth can keep up with, that means that the fossil fuels are going to the top layer of our atmosphere, which keeps stuff in or out, and all the sunlight that can come in, lots of it is going in, giving us energy, and then the energy, the sunlight, is supposed to go back up and out into outer space. And while some of it typically gets reflected back, because the carbon can be like a mirror, because there's so much more carbon, it's a bigger mirror and a stronger mirror. So less of it is going back out like it's supposed to, and more of it is staying in, which creates an effect that is literally the purpose of a greenhouse and heats the earth up. So that's heating all our oceans and our glaciers, and it's melting a lot of things, and it's unbalancing the whole Earth's ecosystem.
What can humans do to help my ecosystem?
Humans can reduce their carbon footprint, which is a very important idea.
What is a carbon footprint, and how do you guys decrease it? Because I can't shrink my paw print.
A carbon footprint is the amount of greenhouse gases or the amount of garbage an individual releases into the biosphere. So this can be counteracted though by, if you have lots of plants in your yard, which can consume some of the CO2, if you have other ways of getting electricity, such as solar panels, and if you use products that are biodegradable, meaning they can be broken down into safe parts to go back into the earth, instead of having plastics which stick around for a very long time and don't ever fully go away.
Oh, thank you. This now makes so much more sense to me.
Of course, anytime.
That was all the questions I have about energy and matter exchange in the biosphere.